The grand crystal hall of the Galactic Council stood high above the shining city of Prime. Its walls, made of transparent crystal and silver steel, shimmered softly under the glow of 100 suns. Delegates from every corner of the galaxy filled the chamber, their voices echoing like waves of thunder. Each species had come to speak for their people, to argue, to debate, and to decide the future of the galaxy. Among them, sitting quietly in the center row, was the human delegation. There were only 5 of them, 5 humans among hundreds of alien leaders. Yet their presence was felt stronger than any other. Every glance, every whisper, every silence in the hall seemed to revolve around them. Humans had earned a strange place in the galaxy, respected by some, feared by others, and misunderstood by many. At the center of the circular chamber, the High Speaker, a tall reptilian being named Tarun, raised his clawed hand for silence. His scales shimmered green and gold, and his voice carried deep authority. Today, Tarun began, we gather to address the matter of human expansion into neutral sectors. Their colonies now reach systems that belong to no council member. This unchecked growth risks disturbing the fragile balance that we have kept for centuries. A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some delegates nodded, others frowned. The humans remained calm, silent, and watchful. Their leader, Ambassador Elena Ward, sat straight, her expression calm but unyielding. Her brown eyes moved slowly around the chamber, meeting the stares of creatures from 100 worlds. Tarun turned his gaze toward her. Ambassador Ward, he said formally. Do you wish to respond? Elena stood. Her movement was steady, graceful, controlled. When she spoke, her voice was clear enough to fill the vast hall without needing amplification. Council members, she began, humans have not expanded out of greed or conquest. We go where there is need. Our colonies have brought food to empty worlds, medicine to the sick, and stability to regions abandoned by the Council's protection. She paused, letting her words echo for a moment. We have rebuilt ruined planets, restored old trade routes, and defended weaker races from pirates. And yet now we are accused of threatening peace. A murmur rippled through the chamber again, louder this time. Some of the delegates shifted uncomfortably. Elena's words carried both logic and emotion, a mixture few could easily resist. One delegate, a short insect-like creature named Kryvex, clicked his mandibles. Peace built on fear is no peace at all, he said sharply. Your ships are powerful, your fleet's too large. You claim to help, but you act without permission. Elena turned toward him, her tone calm but strong. If we had waited for permission, Kryvex, many of your people would have perished during the plague of Tyrannus. It was human aid ships that reached your world first, remember? Kryvex fell silent. He could not deny the truth. The humans had saved millions of his kind years ago when the Council delayed action. Elena continued, we do not seek to rule anyone. We only seek to help, to explore, and to survive like everyone else. Tarun's eyes narrowed. Your words are noble, Ambassador Ward, but power often hides behind noble words. The Council must act before power becomes domination. The chamber grew colder. The humans exchanged brief glances but said nothing. They had expected this. Another delegate from the Seraphon cluster spoke next. Perhaps, she said softly. Humans have simply grown too fast. They adapt to every environment, thrive where others fail, and spread quicker than we can predict. Elena smiled faintly. That is not a fault, she replied. That is survival. Would you punish a tree for growing toward sunlight? The room fell quiet for a moment. Even Tarun hesitated, but then he raised his hand once more. Enough words, he declared. The Council will now vote on the Human Expansion Act. A large holoscreen lit up in the center of the hall, displaying names and symbols of every member world. One by one, glowing lights appeared, green for approval, red for rejection. The humans watched in silence as the pattern formed. Green, green, then red, then more red, and then many more. When the final vote ended, The display showed a large majority in favor of the motion. The High Speaker spoke with heavy authority. By council decision, humanity's right to expand into neutral space is now restricted. Any human colony built beyond assigned borders will be declared illegal. Council patrols will enforce this ruling. A tense silence filled the chamber. Every eye turned toward the humans. Elena did not react at first. She simply looked at the display for a long moment, as if memorizing every red light that glowed. Then slowly, she rose from her seat again. Her voice was calm, but her tone carried the weight of finality. "So that is your decision." Taharun gave a slow nod. "It is the will of the council." Elena looked around the chamber once more, at the faces of those who had voted. Some looked guilty, others looked relieved, a few looked proud. But not one looked brave. "Then humanity has no place here," she said quietly. Gasps filled the room. Even Tarun's expression changed. "Ambassador Ward," he began, "do not..." But she raised her hand gently, and the hall fell silent once more. "For years we have stood with you. We have fought beside you, bled beside you, rebuilt worlds and defended those who could not defend themselves. And yet, when we ask for trust, we are met with fear." Her eyes swept over the crowd. "If fear is what binds this council together, then fear will also be what tears it apart." The other humans stood slowly beside her. Their uniforms bore the symbol of Earth, simple, a blue-white circle representing home. None of them spoke, but their silence said enough. Elena took one last look at the council. "If this is your choice," she said, her voice steady, "then humanity will no longer be part of these talks." And then, without waiting for a response, she turned and walked toward the grand doors of the chamber. The echo of her footsteps filled the vast hall. The other humans followed behind her, heads held high. As they reached the exit, the heavy crystal doors opened with a deep hum. Bright light flooded in from the shining city outside. Elena paused for a moment, looking back at the hall one final time. "May your council find the peace it seeks," she said softly, "though it will no longer find it through us." Then the doors closed. The silence that followed was complete. For a long time, no one spoke. The alien delegates looked at one another, unsure what to say. Even Tarun, who had led the motion, felt a strange emptiness settle in his chest. Minutes passed. Then an aide hurried in from the communications wing. "High Speaker," the aide said, breathing heavily. "The human ships are departing from orbit, all of them." Tarun's eyes widened. "All of them?" "Yes, sir. Every vessel is leaving the station. They're setting course for Sul." A soft murmur swept through the chamber, part fear, part disbelief. No one had ever seen a species walk away from the Galactic Council before. Not in centuries. One delegate whispered, "They can't just leave, can they?" Another replied, "They just did." From the observation platform high above Orevon Prime, the humans' ships could be seen lifting away, sleek silver vessels glowing with blue light. They moved in perfect formation, engines burning like stars. As the last ship vanished into the endless dark, a strange feeling passed through everyone watching. The council chamber, once filled with endless debate and confidence, now felt colder. The air was heavy with something none of them wanted to name. Fear. For the first time in living memory, the Galactic Council had no idea what humanity would do next. And somewhere deep inside, each delegate wondered if they had just made the greatest mistake in the history of the galaxy. The days after humanity's departure felt unusually quiet on Orevon Prime. The crystal hall, once buzzing with conversation, stood still. Delegates who once spoke loudly now whispered in low tones. The long tables where humans used to sit were empty, their small flags removed, their symbols erased from the council displays. It had been only 3 days since the humans had left, but it felt much longer. The Galactic Council had never faced such an event before. No species had ever walked away from the Council's authority. For centuries, the Council had ruled through unity and diplomacy, not through force. But now, for the first time, that unity had been broken. Darun, the high speaker, stood by the tall crystal window of his private chamber, looking out at the vast city below. The spires of EpicSciFiTales gleamed under twin suns, but the beauty did not comfort him. His thoughts were heavy. He had believed that limiting humanity's influence was necessary to maintain peace. Yet now, as reports arrived from across the galaxy, he began to doubt his decision. The first report came from the Tyrannus system, a border region known for trade routes. Without human patrols, pirates had already attacked 2 merchant convoys. The Council's defense fleet was still organizing a response, but it was slow. The second report came from Varan 9, a mining colony that relied on human engineers for its power systems. Without them, half the colony had gone dark. The third report was the most alarming. The Kellan sector, home to several Council member worlds, reported that food shipments from Earth-based stations had stopped. Starvation was not yet a threat, but the fear of it grew fast. Each message ended the same way, requesting human assistance. But there was no answer. Darun turned away from the window. "They truly left," he murmured. "They have closed every channel." His aide, a small bird-like creature named Sivra, nodded quietly. "Yes, High Speaker. All communication lines to Sol have been disconnected. Even automated channels are silent." The High Speaker lowered himself into his chair. "And what of our ambassadors?" Sivra hesitated. 2 were sent to Earth. Neither has returned. The chamber fell silent again. Darun rubbed his temples. "They were once our allies," he said softly. "They stood beside us in wars, helped rebuild entire worlds, and now they are ghosts among the stars." Outside the chamber, the Council's lower halls were crowded with worried delegates. Some called for reconciliation, others for stronger control. A thin, blue-skinned diplomat named Arvin from the Thalar Union raised his voice during an emergency session. "We must reopen talks with them," he said. "Without the humans, half our infrastructure is failing." Across the chamber, Kryvex, the insectoid representative who had once challenged Elena Ward, clicked angrily. "We cannot simply run after them like frightened children. They must understand that the Council's decisions are final." Arvin's voice trembled with frustration. "Final decisions mean nothing if the result is collapse. Look around you, Kryvex. Trade routes are breaking, pirates are rising, and worlds are panicking." The argument grew louder. Dozens of voices joined, shouting over one another. For the first time in centuries, the Council no longer sounded like leaders. It sounded like chaos. Darun entered the chamber and raised his hand for silence. His presence still carried authority, but even he could feel the tension in the air. "Enough," he said firmly. "We will discuss this with order." When the voices settled, he continued. "The humans made their choice. They are not our enemies, but they are no longer part of the Council. We must adapt and take responsibility for our own peace." But even as he spoke, he could see the doubt in every delegate's eyes. They all knew the truth. The Council had relied on humans far more than they wanted to admit. In the following weeks, the silence from Earth became a shadow over every meeting. No ships traveled to human space. No signals were returned. Out on the edge of Council territory, traders reported seeing human ships, but only from a distance. They did not stop for communication or trade. They simply passed through, their engines glowing blue like quiet ghosts. The galaxy began to feel smaller, colder. In the outer rim colonies, several small species had depended on human engineers, doctors, and scientists. Without them, basic systems began to fail. Requests for Council assistance flooded in, but the Council had never been good at quick responses. They were thinkers, not builders. Humans had always been the ones who acted. A message from the colony Aerith 5 reached the Council. "Our crops are dying. The water systems were designed by human experts. We have no idea how to maintain them. Please send someone who knows." No one could. At night, the spaceports of EpicSciFi glowed with strange emptiness. The docking platforms where human ships once stood were now dark. Alien crews still arrived, but something was missing. The humans had always brought laughter, noise, and life to those places. Now there was only silence. One evening, Arvin visited Darun privately. The old diplomat looked weary, his blue skin dull from sleepless nights. "High Speaker," he said quietly. "We are losing control. We must do something." Darun looked up from his desk. "You suggest we beg for their return?" "I suggest," Arvin replied softly, "that we admit our mistake." Tarun's jaw tightened. It was not a mistake to seek balance. They were growing too powerful. Powerful, yes, Arvin said, but fair. When the flood struck Chiron, they sent ships within hours. When the plague hit my world, their doctors saved millions. Tell me, High Speaker, who among us would have done the same? Tarun had no answer. Arvin leaned forward. You know what I think? I think we feared them because they reminded us of what we used to be. Brave, united, full of hope. Somewhere along the way, the Council forgot those things. The humans did not. The High Speaker remained silent for a long moment. Then he spoke softly. And what would you have me do? Send a message, Arvin said. Not from the Council, not from politics, just from one leader to another. Ask to talk, Tarun sighed deeply. And if they ignore us, then we will know we truly failed. That night, Tarun composed a message. It was short, respectful, and sincere. To the leaders of humanity, the Council regrets the divisions between us. The galaxy feels smaller without your voice. We wish to reopen dialogue not as rulers but as friends. Please respond. The message was sent through official and backup channels. Then the waiting began. A day passed. No reply. A week passed. Still nothing. Then a month. The Council realized the truth. Humanity was not ignoring them. Humanity was gone. Fear began spreading like a quiet wind through every corner of galactic society. It was not the fear of war or invasion. It was the fear of uncertainty. Humans had always been the unpredictable force, the species that ran toward danger while others hid. They had given the galaxy comfort simply by existing, because everyone believed that no matter what happened, the humans would handle it. Now that comfort was gone. In border sectors, old rivalries reignited. Some species began arming themselves, fearing that the humans might one day return in anger. Others hoped the humans would return to restore order. Every rumor made the fear worse. Traders whispered that the humans were building massive fleets near Sol. Explorers claimed they had seen construction around Jupiter, structures larger than any Council shipyard, but no one could confirm it. Humanity had sealed its space. In the Crystal Hall, a young delegate asked quietly, High Speaker, what if they come back? Tarun looked out at the stars beyond the window. The lights of human ships no longer filled the skies. Only distant constellations shimmered now. If they come back, he said slowly, I hope they return as friends. He turned toward the empty human seats. But I fear, he added softly, they will not need us when they do. A heavy silence followed his words. Somewhere far away, beyond the Council's reach, humanity was already working on something new, something vast and silent, hidden in the glow of their home system, and in the quiet halls of EpicSciFiTales. The greatest empire in the galaxy began to realize how much it had depended on the species it had just driven away. Fear had indeed spread through the Council, and it was only the beginning. Months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. The halls of EpicSciFiTales had grown quieter, and the once busy trade routes of the galaxy were now filled with whispers of uncertainty. Every week brought new rumors of human fleets, new technology, and strange signals near the Sol system. At first, many Council members tried to ignore them. They believed humanity would eventually return just as others had before. But humanity did not return. Not a single message came from Earth or its colonies. Instead, something else began to happen. Ships traveling near human borders reported strange sightings, massive stations orbiting Jupiter and Saturn, glowing faintly with blue energy. Mining vessels in nearby sectors were told to stay away. Probes sent by the Council vanished without a trace. The silence around humanity had become a wall. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the tension was impossible to ignore. Delegates gathered once again, not to argue about human expansion, but about what to do next. This is unacceptable, cried Kryvex, the insectoid representative whose voice now carried more panic than pride. They are building fleets. They are preparing for war. Across the chamber, Arvin, the blue-skinned diplomat, shook his head calmly. You do not know that, he said. You only assume it because you are afraid. Kryvex slammed his clawed hand on the table. Afraid? I call it wisdom. We gave them power. We gave them freedom, and look what they do. They hide in silence and build weapons in the dark. Arvin leaned forward. Or maybe they are building something we cannot understand. Humans have always built things before they explained them. The room erupted in argument. Dozens of voices overlapped, some angry, others frightened. The high speaker, Tarun, sat quietly for a while, watching the storm of words rise before him. Finally, he stood and raised his claw for silence. "Enough," he said firmly. "We will discuss this with order." When the voices quieted, he continued. "The humans have chosen isolation. It is not our place to interfere unless they pose a clear threat. For now, we must focus on stability within the Council." But even he didn't sound convinced. Later that evening, Tarun met privately with Arvin in his office. The two leaders sat by the wide window overlooking the endless skyline of Orevon Prime. Arvin broke the silence first. "You are worried," he said softly. Tarun gave a tired sigh. "Yes, I cannot read their intentions anymore. The humans once shared every discovery with us. Now they hide everything." Arvin nodded slowly. "Perhaps they are protecting themselves. After what we did, after we voted against them, can you blame them for keeping secrets?" Tarun looked out the window. Far below, thousands of lights moved across the city like rivers of gold. "I do not blame them," he admitted. "But I fear what their silence means. They were never a silent people." Arvin smiled faintly. "No, they were always loud, always curious, always pushing forward." His expression grew serious. "If they are quiet now, it means they are planning something important." Meanwhile, far away in the Sol system, humanity was indeed busy. Above the stormy clouds of Jupiter, massive shipyards floated in orbit, each one larger than a city. Hundreds of new vessels were being built under strict secrecy. The designs were unlike any seen before, sleek, angular, built for both defense and exploration. Thousands of humans worked tirelessly in zero gravity, moving between hulls and engines like tiny sparks of light. Robots and drones hummed through the structures, assembling vast networks of energy grids. From the observation deck of the largest shipyard, Ambassador Elena Ward stood in silence. Her reflection shimmered faintly against the glass as she watched the growing fleet beyond. Beside her, Admiral Jonas Reeve, commander of the United Earth Fleet, joined her. "Impressive sight, isn't it?" he said quietly. Elena nodded. "Yes, but I wish it had not come to this." The Admiral folded his arms. "We gave them everything, aid, knowledge, protection, and they turned on us. We can't depend on them anymore." "I know," Elena said softly. "But still, I hoped reason would win." Jonas looked out at the glowing ships. Reason only works when both sides listen. They stopped listening the moment they began to fear us. She turned toward him. "Do you think they'll attack?" He shook his head. "No, they're too busy being afraid. But fear spreads fast, and when fear leads, logic dies." Elena sighed, her heart heavy. "We are not building weapons for war, Admiral. Remember that. These ships are meant to protect, to explore. Humanity must survive beyond their limits." Jonas smiled faintly. "Yes, Ambassador. I remember. But if they come for us again, we'll be ready this time." Elena looked back at the glowing horizon of Jupiter. "I don't want readiness. I want peace. But peace must be earned, not given." Back in Council space, more systems began to suffer. The Outer Rim colonies continued to experience famine and unrest. Without human trade routes, resources took months to arrive. Some worlds began forming their own local alliances outside the Council's control. On Varan 9, a group of miners declared independence, stating that the Council was too slow and too blind to protect them. Their leader said proudly in a broadcast, "The humans showed us how to stand. Now we will stand on our own." That broadcast spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, other systems began questioning the Council's authority. Taharun received report after report, riots, protests, strikes. The once stable Galactic Council was beginning to crack. During one meeting, a delegate shouted, "This is what happens when you push away the humans. They were the glue holding us together." Another replied bitterly, "Then perhaps we were never strong to begin with." The fear grew worse when new information arrived. A scout ship, operating near human space, returned damaged but alive. Its captain, a thin amphibian named Ralos, reported seeing something extraordinary. "They're building something massive," he said before the entire council. "A structure near Jupiter bigger than a moon. Energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it." The chamber exploded with noise. Kryvek stood immediately. "See, I told you. They are preparing for war." "That is a weapon." Arvin shook his head. "You don't know that." Kryvex pointed a trembling claw toward the holographic display. "What else could it be?" What else needs that much power? Tahroon stared at the image silently. The data was incomplete, but even he felt the chill of uncertainty. We must not assume, he said carefully. Perhaps it is a shield. Perhaps it is for exploration, Kryvex hissed. Exploration? You think they are building a moon-sized ship for exploration? Wake up, High Speaker. The humans are preparing to leave the galaxy or conquer it. His words echoed through the chamber. No one dared to speak after that. That night, in the quiet of his quarters, Tahroon could not sleep. The stars outside his window seemed distant, cold, and uncaring. He replayed the Council's vote in his mind, the moment humanity stood and left. Had they made the wrong choice? He whispered softly to himself. We feared them for their strength, but perhaps we should have admired them for their courage. He looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, humans were working, building, dreaming. The thought both comforted and frightened him. The Council's data showed that the structure near Jupiter emitted stable, rhythmic pulses, almost like a heartbeat. It was not a weapon firing nor a signal of aggression. It was something else, something alive with purpose. Tahroon wondered what it meant. Far away, Elena Ward stood aboard the USS Horizon, one of the first ships of the new fleet. Through the observation dome, the vast metallic ring orbiting Jupiter gleamed in the sunlight. She smiled faintly. It was called the Gateway. Not a weapon, not a fortress, but a bridge. A doorway that would allow humanity to reach distant galaxies, to travel beyond the limits of known space. Humanity was not preparing for war. Humanity was preparing for the future. Are we ready? She asked her crew. Yes, ma'am, came the reply. Power systems are stable. The jump field is holding. Elena placed her hand against the glass. Then let's begin. The gateway pulsed once, glowing brighter than 1,000 stars. Across the galaxy, sensors flared with energy readings. On Orevon Prime, alarms sounded in the Council's halls as Tahroon and the others watched the readings in disbelief. They're opening something, whispered Arvin. Tahroon's eyes widened. No, they're leaving. And as the light of the gateway filled the void of space, a human voice transmitted one final message before the signal vanished. Do not fear us. We are not leaving out of anger. We are going where fear cannot follow. The Galactic Council had never faced anything like this. Months of silence from humanity had transformed into an unsettling tension, and now, reports from sensors and scouts brought new worry. Something enormous had appeared near the Sol system, an energy signature so vast it could not be ignored. In the Council's chamber, delegates were gathered again. Their voices, which had once carried the pride of unity, now trembled with fear. Kryvex, the insectoid representative, banged his clawed hand against the table. They are building a fleet. They're preparing for war. Mark my words, this is their revenge for our vote. Arvin, the calm blue-skinned diplomat, shook his head. No, Kryvex, you still do not understand them. Humans are not vengeful in that way. They act with purpose. You fear them because you do not know them. Across the chamber, murmurs of agreement and doubt mixed with anger. Some species wanted to send fleets to challenge humanity. Others feared confrontation, realizing their forces were weak in comparison. Tahroon, the High Speaker, raised his claws to call for silence. His voice echoed through the hall. Enough! We cannot act on assumptions or fear alone, but we must prepare. Send scouts, maintain defenses, and attempt to contact them. He paused, his eyes scanning the chamber. We need answers. Before fear drives us to a mistake we cannot undo. Outside the Council, humanity continued to work quietly. The USS Horizon, one of the flagship vessels, floated gracefully near the glowing expanse of the Gateway, the enormous structure orbiting Jupiter. Its shape was unlike any Council ship. Smooth, sleek, and seemingly alive, it pulsed with blue energy as if breathing. Elena Ward walked through the command center, her hands lightly brushing the surfaces of holographic displays. Each display tracked the progress of ships' energy flow and distant jump points. Beside her, Admiral Jonas Reeves spoke softly. Ambassador, we have received multiple signals from the Council fleets observing Sol. They are watching us. Do you think they understand what this is? Elena shook her head slightly. No, they assume it is a weapon. But it is not. It is a bridge. A way to reach beyond their understanding, beyond their control. We build for discovery, for survival, and for freedom, not for war. A technician called out. Jump field is stable. Energy distribution is optimal. We are ready to activate the gateway. Elena nodded. Begin the sequence. Back at Orevin Prime, the Council received a sudden transmission. The chamber fell silent as a human face appeared on every holoscreen. It was Elena Ward. She spoke calmly, her voice steady and firm. Council of the Galaxy, we did not abandon you. We abandoned the mistrust and fear that clouded our cooperation. You sought to limit our growth. You voted against our right to explore, to protect, and to help. We respected your choice, and now we must walk our own path. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Krivex banged his claws in disbelief. This is insolent. They show us no respect. Arvin's voice was quiet, almost reverent. No, Krivex. They show us the truth. They always have, Elena continued, her gaze unwavering. We will not attack. We will not conquer. We will explore, discover, and protect life wherever we find it. But we will not be bound by council politics or fear. Humanity will chart its own course among the stars. Her words filled the hall. The chamber, once crowded with voices and chaos, now held a heavy silence. Every delegate realized the meaning of her message. Humanity was leaving, but not in anger. They were leaving because they chose freedom over compromise with fear. The message ended, but the fear lingered. Do they mean to leave forever? Whispered one of the younger delegates. Tarun leaned back, his eyes shadowed with worry. It seems so. They are not coming back to argue, to negotiate, or to bow to fear. They will act on their own terms. And we cannot stop them. Across the galaxy, alien fleets watched humanity's movements with mixed emotions. Scientists tried to analyze the gateway's energy patterns. Strategists debated military possibilities. Diplomats wrote frantic messages, hoping for some explanation, but humanity gave none. Meanwhile, near the Sol system, the first jump through the gateway was initiated. The USS Horizon, followed by dozens of other ships, accelerated toward the portal. Space bent and shimmered as the ships passed through, emerging into distant star systems the Council had never mapped. Elena Ward stood on the observation deck of Horizon, watching the stars stretch and curve. This is what humans do, she whispered to herself. We go forward even when others hesitate. We explore even when the path is unknown, and we survive even when the world doubts us. Admiral Reeve nodded silently. It is a beautiful sight. Elena smiled faintly. Not beauty, Admiral, hope. The Council may fear us, but we carry hope for ourselves and for those who cannot follow us. Back in the Council chamber, Tarun addressed the delegates. This is not war, he said solemnly. The humans have made it clear they do not intend to attack. But they have made it equally clear that they will no longer be constrained by our decisions. He paused. We cannot stop them. We cannot control them. And that is something we must accept. The chamber was heavy with realization. The Council had spent centuries believing that it could guide, control, and protect the galaxy. But humanity had shown that true strength lies in independence and courage. Arvin spoke again. Perhaps it is time we learn from them, High Speaker. Perhaps fear should no longer guide our decisions. Krivex, still tense, growled softly. I do not trust them. We cannot trust any species that leaves without warning. Tarun looked at him calmly. Trust is earned through respect and action, Krivex. Humanity earned our respect long ago. Perhaps we are only now learning to recognize it. Far from the Council, humans continued to expand the Gateway's network. Each new system they reached was carefully mapped, secured, and prepared for future colonization and exploration. Every jump, every new colony was peaceful. Every life they encountered was protected. Elena Ward knew that the Council feared humans because they could not control them. That was true. Humans had never wanted control, they wanted responsibility. Responsibility to themselves, to their allies, and to life itself. Let them watch, she said quietly. Let them fear. But we will not stop being who we are. Humans build, humans protect, humans explore, and humans survive. The Council struggled to adjust. Some tried to fill the void left by humans, but no species could match their speed, resourcefulness, or courage. Every plan fell short. Every fleet moved too slowly. Every negotiation took longer than expected. Alien scientists attempted to study the Gateway's energy signature. They could not comprehend it fully. The technology was advanced yet elegant. It worked without explanation, and its power seemed endless. Delegates argued, strategized, and speculated. Some believed humanity would return eventually, stronger than before. Others feared humanity would never return, leaving the galaxy in chaos. And in the midst of this fear and uncertainty, one truth became clear. Humanity had changed the game. The Council could no longer dictate the future of the galaxy. Humanity had chosen its own path. In the distance, as human ships jumped from system to system, another message was sent to the Council. We do not come in anger. We come in hope. When you are ready to meet us as equals, find us among the stars. Until then, we will walk our own path, the message ended. Silence returned to the council chamber, heavier than before. Krivex turned to Tahroon. And if they return with power we cannot match? Tahroon's eyes were steady. Then we will have learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy. True strength does not come from fear. It comes from courage, independence, and the will to protect life. For the first time, the chamber felt the weight of admiration. Not for themselves, but for the species that had left them behind. Humans, somewhere far away. The USS Horizon accelerated toward a new galaxy, leaving behind a legacy of awe, respect, and fear. The Council had learned one undeniable fact. When humans chose freedom, no force could stop them. And in that lesson lay the future of the stars. Years passed since humanity had left the Galactic Council. Orevon Prime had changed. The Crystal Hall, once alive with discussion and negotiation, had grown quieter. The voices of alien delegates carried caution and doubt, not the confidence of the past. Trade routes that had been efficient now moved slowly. Pirate attacks increased. Border systems that had relied on human patrol struggled to maintain peace. It was clear to every species that the absence of humans left a void, one that could not be filled by fear or rules alone. Tahroon, the High Speaker, walked through the halls of the council chamber. His scales had dulled slightly with age and worry. He remembered the day humans had left. The memory still weighed on him heavily. At the time he had thought humanity was arrogant, reckless. But now he realized the truth. Humans had acted with wisdom, courage, and patience. Arvin, the blue-skinned diplomat, joined him. The galaxy is slower now, he said quietly. Trade, communication, even diplomacy, it all takes longer. We did not realize how much we depended on them. Tahroon nodded. We were blinded by fear. Fear of their strength, their speed, their courage. We tried to control them. And they taught us a lesson we will never forget. Across the council chambers, other delegates whispered among themselves. Some admitted quietly that humans had been a stabilizing force. Others worried about what humans might do in the future. Every system had stories of human aid, human defense, human intervention. Every world remembered how humans had built peace where none existed. Far from the council, humanity continued to thrive. The USS Horizon, now part of a fleet larger than any council force, traveled through uncharted systems. Colonies had been established in distant star clusters. Scientific stations studied unknown planets and stars. Explorers discovered life forms no council member had ever imagined. And through it all, humanity sent no aggressive signals. No fleets attacked. No weapons fired. Humans acted with purpose, not fear. Elena Ward stood on the observation deck of a new human station, looking out at the endless stars. We could have stayed in council space, she said to Admiral Reeve. We could have forced them to respect us. Reeve shook his head. We could have, yes, but they would never have learned. They would have always been afraid of us. Elena smiled faintly. They are learning now, slowly, painfully, and one day perhaps they will understand what true cooperation looks like. Reeve nodded. I hope so, Ambassador. But for now, humanity's path is our own. We will not interfere, and we will not fight unless it is necessary. That is what makes us different. Back at the council, reports continued to arrive from the outer sectors. Worlds once protected by human fleets were now struggling to maintain order. Traders, scientists, and diplomats began realizing how much humans had done quietly, without claiming credit. The council's own fleets were stretched thin, and alliances that had seemed stable began to fracture. A few bold colonies, inspired by human example, began forming their own local governments, independent of the council. Krivex, now older and slower, spoke quietly to a fellow delegate. I once thought humans were dangerous because they acted freely. Now I see that it is our fear that was dangerous. The other delegate nodded solemnly. We may never match them, but perhaps we can learn from them. Tahroon, listening nearby, allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had left, but their lessons remained. Meanwhile, humanity continued exploring distant galaxies. The gateway stations spread farther than any council member could imagine. Each jump point allowed humans to move quickly, establishing colonies, studying new species, and sharing knowledge with those willing to learn. Human settlements became centers of cooperation. They were not governed by rigid rules, but by mutual respect, shared knowledge, and the understanding that survival required courage and unity. Species who encountered humans often spoke of them with admiration and sometimes fear, but it was a different kind of fear now. Not the fear of war or domination, but the awe of a species that could achieve so much while remaining ethical, patient, and strong. On Orevin Prime, the Council continued to function, but it was never the same. Delegates often spoke in hushed tones about the humans' legacy. They showed us the power of initiative, Arvin said to Tarun during a council meeting. They taught us that peace is not built on rules alone, but on courage, trust, and action. Krivex, still cautious, added, and they showed us that fear is the enemy of progress. If we let fear guide us, we will fail. Tarun leaned back in his chair, gazing at the chamber. Yes, and we must remember that lesson. Perhaps one day we will be ready to meet them again, not as rulers, but as equals. Decades later, a council scout discovered a new human-built station at the edge of a distant galaxy. Its energy signature radiated light far stronger than any council facility. A message followed, broadcast in hundreds of languages, reaching every corner of the galaxy. We remember you. When you are ready for true cooperation, find us among the stars. Until then, continue your work. Learn, grow, and do not let fear guide you. Tarun, now older and wiser, received the message in his private quarters. He read it slowly, feeling the weight of its meaning. Arvin joined him quietly. They did not threaten us, he said. They left a choice. Respect or fear, cooperation or isolation. And they will wait for the day we are ready. Tarun nodded. Humans have always been more than we expected. Stronger, braver, and wiser. Their departure was not a loss, it was a gift. A reminder of what the galaxy can be. Across the stars, humans continued their journey. They explored worlds unknown, brought aid where needed, and shared knowledge with those who sought it. They remained free, strong, and ethical, leaving a trail of hope behind them. Their ships glowed like beacons in the darkness, a symbol of what a species could achieve when it acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. And in every corner of the galaxy, when delegates spoke of humans, they spoke with respect. Some feared their power. Others admired their ethics. But all understood one undeniable truth. When humans chose their path, they were unstoppable. And the galaxy would never forget the day they walked away from the Council. For it was the day humans showed that true strength lies not in domination, but in courage, freedom, and the will to protect life, no matter how far the stars may stretch. The legacy of their departure lived on forever. A lesson in humility, hope, and the extraordinary potential of humanity.